All right. Good morning, everybody, and happy Friday. Thank you for joining us this morning for our webinar on hidden treasures, the plants you should use more often. My name is Carrington Meisner. I'm your host for today's webinar. So before we get started and talking about all of these awesome plants, there are a few housekeeping items that I'd like to go through. All right, so this is a webinar, so your camera and microphone have been disabled. If you do have a question at any point during the presentation, please feel free to type it in our Q&A box. We'll either type the answer back to you directly or we'll answer your question live from Shannon and Nikki. A follow-up email will be sent at the end of this presentation with a link to the required test to earn an ASLA CEU credit. So please make sure that you should complete these within 24 hours of this session so that it can count towards that CEU credit. This webinar is being recorded and it actually will be available on our website early next week and likely will be coming out in our e-newsletter. So if you'd like to rewatch it, you can find it there. We will be sending out a couple of polls during this webinar. The results are anonymous, so please feel free to share your thoughts. We love hearing from you guys on what your favorite plants are and getting your opinions. And there will be a post-webinar survey that automatically opens in your web browser after you leave the webinar. This is also anonymous. We love your feedback so we can help make these webinars beneficial for all of you and enhance them for the future. So please share your feedback with us. We love to hear it so we can make this a good time for everybody. So let's go and get started. We do have a poll to start us off today. And that is, how is your spring looking this year? We know spring with this warm weather on the horizon has been getting everyone excited for the spring season. So is it looking busier than normal, average, or maybe even slower than normal? I see a lot of answers coming in. Give you about 10 more seconds. All right. Looks like we've got almost everybody in now. And busier than normal is the winner. So with 58% of you saying that the spring is looking busier, seems pretty normal with what we've been hearing from our customers. So it is good to see that we're going to have a nice strong spring season. And we're excited for you, and we want to be here to support you with those plans to help with those projects and different sales. So jumping right in, your presenters today are Sales Operations Manager Nikki Moline and Marketing Manager Shannon McInerney. You're likely to recognize Shannon and Nikki if you've been watching our YouTube channel, our Midwest Garden Pro series, or our Instagram, where they've been doing a lot of great garden walks over the winter and through last year. When she's not sharing her passion for plants via educational webinars and videos, Nikki leads and manages the sales, shipping, and order fulfillment teams to ensure customer experience expectations are met. Nikki also directs marketing activities and plays a pivotal role in strategic company planning. She's also an ICN Pro, which is an Illinois certified nursery professional, specializing in perennials. And then Shannon oversees the marketing initiatives, our display gardens, and our company events. She manages the plant accession process, manages license agreements for our brand programs, and is in charge of pricing. So I will, to kick it off, hand it over to Shannon and Nikki.
All right, thank you, Carrington. Thanks everybody for joining us this morning. Like the poll showed, it sounds like it's going to be a busy spring for everybody, and we know this nice weather we've been having has probably made it come even a little sooner than all of us anticipated. So we're glad you're still able to be with us here today. So today we're talking about hidden treasures, and I have to say, I'm like most excited, I think, of any of the webinars that we've given or the few that we have in the next couple of weeks. This is the one I'm most excited for because this is like our true, I think, plant geek talk. Like it's plants that we see here in the gardens and love and talk about and then kind of say, you know, like, why don't we sell more of these? Like, why don't people know how great this plant is? So I'm super excited to be able to talk about all these plants today. And so just a little bit of background on our gardens at Midwest, because you're going to see that most of these plants are somewhere in our gardens. we use that, or they're intended to be an outdoor classroom. So both our employees and our customers can come and learn and observe the plants and compare between varieties and really get a in-person, you know, not just a picture on a slide, but get an in-person impression of what these plants are like. So all of the plants are labeled with scientific names, or in some cases trademark names too, because we know that the scientific names on those can get a little bizarre. So all the plants in the gardens are labeled, and then all of the products in the garden, or all of our gardens, also use Midwest Trading products, either as amendments or mulch. So if you come visit the gardens, you can find signage in each garden about what products that we've used there. So I also wanted to talk about a couple kind of maintenance or how we take care of our gardens. So we do have a maintenance crew. Generally, for the most part, obviously this time of year, they're cutting everything back. We leave most gardens up over the winter, so they're working on cutting back right now. But throughout the season, primarily the maintenance they do is weeding. With the exception of our perennial display garden, we don't really deadhead throughout the season. We like to leave it up and see the transitions through the garden. So I would say they take time because there are a lot of them, but they're not meant to be super labor intensive. The other thing is that we don't have any in-ground irrigation here. So they're really great to see when we talk about how things do in dry weather and things like that. It's not like they're getting irrigated and it's a false sense of, you know, how something's working. So obviously in summers like last year, when we had incredible heat for an extended period of time, we were watering just to, you know, be able to preserve the plants. But in a normal year where we go through just some ebbs and flows, we don't do supplemental irrigation. So just something I wanted to note on that. So on our next slide, we have a map of the gardens. And so this kind of gives you a sense of where everything is. And we'll stay on this for a moment, but on the next slide, we'll show you where you can find this map. But so you can see, we have, you know, over 10 different gardens. We're kind of still working on finishing out the last couple. One thing I did point out is we're going to refer to the median garden, the revitalized median garden, a time or two today. And I realize it's not labeled on here yet, but that's in that gray section, kind of next to where it's labeled customer parking. That's the median garden that we're talking about. So a few of these things, again, spring kind of hit us early, so we're going to work on updating these in the next week or two on the website and in our plans. So on the next slide, this is our website and where you can find a lot of this information. So we have the Our Gardens tab, and if you click on that top Our Gardens, it'll give you a description, but then it'll also give you a link to this tour guide that we're showing here on the right. So that has the map we just saw in it. It has a description of each of the gardens. So we have them here on site, obviously. If you're visiting us, you can grab one. But if you just want to peruse that in advance of a visit, or if you're not able to visit, you can find that there. So then you can see we have all the rest of the gardens listed. And if you click into each of those, it will have the plant list for each garden, and so on and so forth. So just some background information on you know, what we're going to be talking about and where you can find more information if you're looking for it after this talk. So with that, Nikki is going to kick it off with our ground covers for today.
Shannon, quick question on the one of the first slides. Do you know what pink salvia that was? I think it was from our trial gardens.
Ooh, let me look back.
We might have to look that one up. So give us a couple of minutes, guys. We'll let you know what that first salvia is, but it might have been one that we had in trials. I'm not sure we're carrying it yet, but we'll check that out for you.
Yep, I'll look for it.
Okay, thanks. All right, so let's talk ground covers. So we have a very awesome ground cover display garden here on the property. So if you stop by, like Shannon said, we have lots of different gardens to look at. One of them being a Hocus Pocus ground covers display garden. So you might see these plants advertised as Hocus Pocus ground covers or premium pint ground covers, same plants, just how we kind of package and market them. But these are the plants that come in the nice little round 4-inch pint pots, flats of 10. So we have over 90 varieties of ground cover available for different situations, whether it's walking paths, dry areas, shade, anything you guys can think of, we probably have a ground cover solution for that. So I would highly recommend that you guys definitely stop by and check it out, walk the garden. You can see form, color, kind of what situation we have going on in the garden and how well the plant's growing. Something interesting to see if you do stop by the Hocus Pocus ground covers garden is we do have a thin layer of aggregate over the soil in more of the dry area for some of our ground covers that don't like a wet crown on the plant. So we found that to be very effective in growing those. So you can take a look at that if you stop by the gardens. So we will roll into our first plant here. I'm really excited to talk about this one. So Cireta Stigma Plumbaginoides. So this one's blue plumbago, if you're not familiar with it. And I think Shannon and I absolutely love this plant. It's kind of wild that we don't sell a lot of this because it is one of the only true blue flowers that I've seen on a plant, on a ground cover. So really, really unique plant. So this guy is going to spread, so form a nice colony for you once you plant it. Spreads by stolons. It's a really nice compact ground cover, doesn't get more than a foot tall. And what I love about it is it has multi-season interest. So if you guys have heard me talk before, I'm a huge proponent of plants that do more for us than just like flower for a few weeks and go away. So this plant obviously is a great ground cover. It's great for planting maybe an understory of a shrub area because it can take some part shade. But what also makes it a powerhouse, it looks good all year round. So this guy does emerge a little bit later in the spring, needs some warm temps to come up. So if you guys do have like a bulb display, this would be an awesome ground cover to interplant with a bulb.
Nikki, your sound went out. We have, Nikki has occasional sound issues sometimes, so.
Did my audio fall out? Yes.
Yeah, you're
okay.
good now.
Sorry. My computer likes to do that to me. Technology. So I like this guy because of the timing. So again, the foliage comes up later, so you can interplant it maybe with a bulb display. So as your bulbs come up, they do their thing. And then once they go to sleep, the Cireta stigma will come out of the ground. From there, it gets a nice, really thick, glossy foliage that forms a beautiful mat. And kind of the venation in the foliage itself is red, and the stems are red, which is really kind of interesting. And then come fall, we get this beautiful blue flowering, and we have that flowering going on for a couple months, which is great. And then it gets red fall color. So I think this ground cover is definitely underutilized. It has so many beautiful attributes. And it's a kind of a powerhouse when it comes to color in the fall. This guy's also deer and rabbit resistant. We haven't seen any issues with that in our landscape. So another added bonus there. And I know it does say zone 5. So, okay, let's talk a little bit about potentially how we can protect this plant, especially if you're maybe not the Chicagoland area. Something to do is make sure you leave the foliage up. So don't come through and shear this guy back in the fall. Leave the foliage up, let it overwinter with the foliage on. It's not evergreen, but at least the dead foliage will help protect the root system. So if you guys want to check this one out, we do have it in our Hocus Pocus ground covers display garden and our median garden as well. So if you come see us, make sure to check this one out.
Nikki, we had a question on this one. If this plant is dangerous to animals, I don't believe I've heard or seen that, but do you know for a fact?
Can you say that one more time?
On the Cireta stigma, we had a question whether this plant was dangerous to animals. I would assume it's like whether.
It's not dangerous to animals, but well, I did read that it can cause some irritation on skin if you do prune it. So one of the things I did read when I was kind of setting up on it is if you prune it without gloves, it can cause some skin irritation. Not bad, but I might recommend that you use gloves when handling it. But I didn't read anything that it was going to like kill animals.
Yeah, I have not ever seen or heard anything like that either. So, okay. Okay, we had a couple other questions. Well, first I'll follow up on that Salvia question. So that is in our trial garden. That was Salvia Pink Profusion, but we will actually be carrying that starting this year, I believe, as part of our Bud and Bloom program. So if you're looking for that one, that's where you can find it. So then some other questions just in general about the gardens. When are you open for visits? So we are open when we're open for business hours. So right now our hours are 7:30 to 4 from Monday through Friday. But in the next couple of weeks here, the end of the last week of March, our hours will change to 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And we will also be open on Saturdays from 7 to 3:30. So anytime we are open for business, you are welcome to come walk the gardens. What times are good to visit and walk the gardens? We would say really any time of year. So they're always changing. Now when things are just getting going, there's probably the biggest lull before some of the bulbs really kick in. But then throughout the season, it's just progressively changes. So I would say anytime is a good time. So, okay, getting into our next plant, we have Gypsophila Reptons Rosia. And this one you can find, like Nikki talked, it's part of our Hocus Pocus Groundcovers program. So you can find it in the Hocus Pocus garden, or we also have it in our Perennial and Ornamental Display Garden. So that's actually where this picture shown is from. We kind of have a rock ledge there, and it's planted all along the front of that edge. And it just was a standout last year. So you can see it has the small baby's breath flowers, but where we're, in flower arrangements and things like that, we're typically used to seeing them in white. These are kind of a nice pinky blush color, so something a little bit different. They stay nice and small, so about 3 to 6 inches tall and a little bit wider. And they'll bloom kind of in the prime perennial time, so June through August. But these are a great, again, it's on this rock ledge, so it's a great rock garden type of plant. So if you have a drier site or some rocks that you need to fill in between the crevices, this is a great plant for that. It can take the heat and the drought very well once it's established. I would say, on the contrary, with a plant like that, it's not going to want to sit in a wet site, so that will not be a good place for it. But yeah, this is one that definitely last summer, just before, again, we had a really hot, dry summer. So this plant was very happy last year. So this is definitely one to check out if you have not used it, Gypsophila Rosia.
All right, next one that we have for you guys is Lavendula Superblue. And this one I would have to say was a complete standout to us in our trial gardens. We were just floored by it. We kept talking about it. It was planted somewhere where we were seeing it pretty much every day. And so we knew we had to add it to the product line. Had excellent habit, just really nice plant. Once it started blooming, just bloomed for a really long time. Excellent color, excellent habit. Didn't do like the donut thing that we can sometimes see, with lavender, it kind of opens up in the middle. So overall, really great plant in our trial garden, and moved to adding it to our product line. So this guy's super durable.
Nikki, your sound went out again.
Sorry, guys. I don't know why my audio keeps dropping out. My computer has a mind of its own. So this guy is a super durable plant, can handle drought tolerant, deer resistant, any of those kind of really tough landscape situations. It does like full sun. It does like to stay dry. So it doesn't like wet feet. It especially doesn't like wet feet in the winter. So make sure that you guys are planting it somewhere that is well drained. Because if you do let it sit in water over the winter, you might not have it come back the next year. But this plant, because it is English lavender, is one that you can use for cut flower. It is an edible plant, so you can use it for teas or any sort of food that you want to make with lavender. So very versatile. And through the breeding on this one of the things they did breed for was better tolerance to heat and humidity. Especially in our climate, sometimes, when it gets really humid out, lavender can just melt. We did not see this on this plant. It just stayed perfect looking, looked beautiful. So as the summer humidity kind of jets up, Don't worry, this guy's not going to melt out on you. And the name, of course, is because the flowers have a really nice kind of deep purple blue color. So that's Lavender Superblue, and you can check this one out in the Hocus Pocus Groundcovers Display Garden when you guys stop by.
All right, so next up we have Phlox Strawberries and Cream. So as you can see here, it looks like a Phlox subulata, which you're probably familiar with varieties like Emerald Blue and Emerald Pink. So this is a cross between Phlox subulata. So it's Phlox subulata and Phlox kelsey, and this was bred by Jim Alt at the Chicago Botanic Garden. So it is part of the Chicagoland Grows program. And so he's actually done quite a bit with breeding on the Phlox subulata types, or the low growing phlox, in the past several years. So a few years ago, we had, I want to say, about 6 different varieties from him. And this was kind of the standout to us. So this picture, you can kind of see it's a lighter pink color, but it goes through a really nice color progression. So when the blooms open up, they're basically a white color, and then they deepen as they go. So it kind of goes from white to this blush color you're seeing here, and then to more of a vibrant pinky purple color. So when you have all those transitions happening on the same plant at one time, it really is that strawberries and cream effect, where you've got a nice mix of the white and pink, and it's really pretty. So there was another variety of his breeding that was meant to be the earliest bloomer, and that definitely started a couple weeks before the typical Phlox subulata do, but this one was pretty close. I was going back and looking at pictures yesterday, and that was right behind this one. So where they normally start, maybe mid to late April, this is going to be on the earlier end of that. And I mentioned we did have these in our trial gardens. We started them in our trial gardens in 2016. So they were there several years, overwintered great, never had any issues with them. We did eventually take them out because it wasn't a trial anymore. We had added these plants. So now you can find it in the Hocus Pocus Groundcovers garden. It's a part of that program. So otherwise, similar to other Phlox characteristics, where it's going to be 3 to 6 inches tall, wider spread than that, 12 to 18 inches. And like I said, for the most part, typical Phlox subulata time, but this is going to start on the earlier end of that. So that's Phlox Strawberries and Cream.
Shannon, do you have any comments on what it looks like in the fall? Just more of a standard kind of subulata?
Yeah, it is. I do think on this one, you might get like a sporadic bloom here or there throughout the summer, but nothing like the spring effect on it. Yes. And then once the flowers are done, it will just kind of be the typical Phlox, greenish. Sometimes it gets a little reddish tint to it, mound, but yeah, similar to a Phlox subulata in that regard.
Okay, so now I'll go ahead and talk about Viola Painted Porcelain, and this one I'm really excited about. This one was definitely kind of a powerhouse bloomer for us. So last year, this guy started blooming, I would say probably in April. I think actually it bloomed super early last year. I know this says June, but it bloomed really early for us because I remember seeing it start around Easter. And then this guy bloomed through summer. So I had us add this picture, that second picture on the right there, if you're looking at your screen. That picture was taken June 30th. And look at how it's still just going like crazy. Now, I will say as the summer heat kind of sets in, the flowers do get a little bit more white in color, so they lose that kind of intense purple. But when they do start, they are that really nice kind of painted purple porcelain color. So really, really great powerhouse plant. I think this plant is one that you could use if in place of an annual display or maybe an edge of a bed, if you had somebody that really wanted that consistent color. And you could also use it in containers. So instead of an annual, you guys could pop this one in a container as well. So really the claim to fame on this one is the extremely long bloom time, good porter plants, and will flower for you guys all spring and summer long. So We don't sell a lot of these, which this is one like Shannon was talking about. We're like, why don't people use this one? It has just performed so great for us. So if you want to see it for yourself, we'll have it in the Hocus Pocus Groundcovers Display Garden. Maybe Shannon and I will try and promote it a little bit more in our garden walks, because it's definitely worth promoting. So that's Viola painted porcelain. So yeah, it does look like a pansy. It does. It looks like it's a perennial pansy, basically. So now we're going to move on to the next plant group. But before we do that, we want to do a poll. So I'm going to have Carrington pull up a poll for us. And out of all these ground covers that we showed you today, we're just interested, which one kind of like struck your fancy most? Which one are you the most excited about?
We had a question about planting the Gypsophila or the Viola in a container, and could you expect them to return the next year? We don't have any experience with that, so I can't tell you for sure. I would guess that the Viola, you would probably be okay. I don't know if I would leave it outside, or I think if you moved it into like even an unheated garage, I think maybe you would have success. The Gypsophila, just again, because of some of the drainage things and stuff like that, I'm not sure. But hey, if you want to give it a try, definitely let us know if you have success, because that would be something great.
All right, we have 87% of people voting in, and the results here are Superblue English Lavender.
Yeah, that one is that one definitely was a standout. All of these were really standouts to us.
I know, that's what I was just thinking, that I really love all of these plants. I have a couple of them in my yard, and yeah, all great choices. So can't go wrong.
All right. Back to you, Shannon.
All right. So next we are going to get into perennials. So I'm just going to give you a quick overview of our perennial and ornamental grass display garden. So if you've been to our St. Charles property, it's kind of located on the northern border of the property. And we redesigned it a couple of years ago, back in, I think 2017 was our groundbreaking. And Carla Patterson Lynch, who did a webinar for us a few weeks ago, was the designer on it. And she had this great idea to make the beds so you could take your trade list and start at the eastern end. So if you're, going from the office, that would be the right side. Take your trade list and walk through it from A to Z and look at all the genuses. So everything in the same genus is grouped as, pretty closely together. And so you'd be able to compare everything all at once and just kind of walk the length of the garden. So we do have maps available in this garden because the beds are numbered. So if you're really specifically like, hey, I really want to see hosta, or I really want to see salvia or penstemon or something like that, we do have a key for you in that map, so you can go straight to those beds that those plants are in. But like I said, it showcases the diversity within a genus, and then also the kind of the seasonality, the texture, things like that. So the one kind of exception to the A to Z is we do have all the grasses and sedges located at the far west end, just because rather than putting those all alphabetically, we really wanted those to all be able to be seen and looked at together. So we do refresh yearly. Occasionally we do have replacements, but more what we mean by that is obviously our catalog is always changing. So there are plants that we're discontinuing and then plants that we're adding new. So usually I would say about Memorial Day is a good target, is we're working to get the old plants out and get the new plants in. So everything is up to date with what is in our current catalog. And then I mentioned before, we don't do a ton of maintenance, but this garden is definitely where we do the most maintenance in terms of, cutting back and deadheading and things like that, because we want the plants to be showing the best in this sense and to be able to compare to one another. So when we do maintenance, things like maybe a hard cut back around Memorial Day, we do try to put a stake in it to note that plant has been cut back. So you guys at least know that you know, this isn't just been allowed to go on its own, but we've been doing some maintenance here. So the plants we are going to go through can all be found in Perennial Island, but then also in some of our other gardens as well. So our first perennial is Yerbia divaricata, or white wood aster. So this one, Austin Eichscheid, you guys probably know, does a lot of work on, has done several different gardens on the St. Charles property. And he used this one in our dry shade garden a couple of years ago, kind of as a massing plant. And the result was so fantastic that it's like, why aren't more people doing this? So maybe I'm giving away his secret, I guess. But so you can see it's got the small white flower there, but it's got the really nice contrasting blackish red stems, and the kind of heart-shaped foliage to it. So this gets about 18 to 24 inches tall and wider. So planted in a mass, it just kind of looks like a cloud when it's in bloom. I said it's in our dry shade garden, so this is a great plant for shade. Ideal conditions are probably a couple hours of sun, but it can take a little bit more shade as well. And again, it's in our dry shade garden, so it is drought tolerant. So once it's established, it can take, you know, some of the summers like we had last year where we're not getting a whole lot of extra water. So this plant is not native to Illinois, but it is native to North America, kind of to the, you know, the eastern side of the country. So it is a great plant for butterflies, pollinators, things like that. And it also is deer resistant. So a lot of great attributes to this plant. And again, something that we think should be used more than it is. There are also some of them, again, Austin likes this plant a lot. So his modern Midwest matrix garden, there are also some found in there. So this is Yerbia divaricata.
I'm going to answer a quick question here. Somebody asked if our plants are perennials. So we do not grow really many annuals at all, maybe a couple specialty ones, but we denote what those are. All of our plants are perennial, so they'll come back year after year in our Chicagoland area. So they're usually hardy to at least zone 5, if not zone 4, zone 3, and that's all in our catalog or online. So make sure to check that out. Okay.
And then, sorry, there was one more question. I believe it was in regards to the Yerbia. Does this need to be Chelsea chopped? We do not. So I think, you know, sometimes if you're in heavier shade, it probably wouldn't hurt, just to kind of, you know, make sure the stems are sturdy. But we do not Chelsea chop this plant, no.
Okay, the next item is Hucra lava lamp. And I think Shannon and I, in talking about adding this Hucra, I know a lot of people have problems with Hucra, especially overwintering. They can frost heave out of the soil. Some of the newer varieties, cool colors, but we're just not seeing them make it over the winter. This one has lived for us. So we've had it in our trials since 2014, and it has come back for us. We have no issue overwintering this guy. And it just has stunning color. I think when we were trialing it, again, adding a Hucra, we're like, so many Hucras, so little time. What Hucra do we add? And I think the winter survivability definitely caught our eye, as well as the color. So it's not like as vibrant as maybe like a fire alarm or some of those like really bright reds, but it does live over the winter, and it does give you this nice, really kind of coppery red foliage. As the foliage ages, it turns to kind of like a nice coppery purple, so you get kind of a nice kind of different colors as the plant ages, which I think is just beautiful. This is also a Velosa type, and what does that mean? If you guys haven't heard what that means, Hucra that are bred with that Velosa blood, as they'll say, means that this plant is definitely more tolerant of heat and humidity, which we absolutely need here in the Chicagoland area. We have cold winters, which Hucra don't like, and we have really hot and humid summers, which Hucra don't like. So, but if you get a Hucra bred with that Velosa type, definitely will help with the overwintering, or with the heat and humidity in the summer. The other thing on this guy is it does tend to be deer and rabbit resistant. So on Hucras, if you get one that has a thicker, fuzzier leaf, a lot of times the rabbits will leave them alone. Some of the Hucras that don't have that thick fuzzy leaf, yeah, the rabbits will mow them back, but this guy we've not seen any issue with. So this one, if you want to check out what it looks like, we definitely have some in the perennial and ornamental grass display garden. So come see it for yourself.
Yes, love that one. And it has been a great performer for us. We had a couple questions. So I mentioned and there was a question about the Chelsea chop on the aster, and a couple of people asked what that is. So that is cutting back perennials. The Chelsea chop refers to the Chelsea flower show, which is towards the end of May. And so it's a common practice in, like, I guess, highly maintained perennial gardens that by that point in the season, so definitely like by Memorial Day, some of the perennials that get bigger and leggier, so thinking like Monarda, Solidago, something else in my yard that I did last year that I can't remember, but you can cut those back like almost in half. You know, you can kind of stagger it a little bit to make it look more natural, but you can cut those down in size before they bloom to kind of keep them a little bit compact and from getting so leggy. So again, Carla, who helps us with Perennial Island or the Perennial Display Garden, is a big proponent of that. So we do it on selected plants in the Perennial Display Garden. So our next plant is Originatum Herrenhausen. And this is another plant that Austin uses a lot. And it's also a plant that Pete Outhoff, if you guys are familiar with him, uses a lot. So he used it in the garden he designed here at the front of our office. And he used it in the Lurie Garden down in Chicago and the High Line. So, you know, definitely popular with him. And we've seen it like tick up a little bit in the last couple of years, I think, but it's like such a great plant. It's one of those we're like, more people need to use this. So that's why we're talking about it now. So you can see it's kind of we have it listed as pink flowers. I always think of them as a little bit more purple, but I think that's kind of the contrast between, you know, that outer calyx or, you know, I'm not sure I have the right word there, but between the flower and kind of the bud surrounding it. So it kind of is in that pinky purple range. So this flowers a little bit later in the season, like August, September or so. So it's a nice, as you know, a lot of the other perennials, the June bloomers, the daylilies, the penstemon, things like that, you know, have kind of finished up. It's nice to add some color from something else in the garden. And you can see there, I really love how it contrasts with the Calamantha nepeta nepeta. They're kind of, you know, both that finer textured, and so you kind of get the white and the purple playing off each other, which I think is really great. So it is an oregano, so it is deer and rabbit resistant, and kind of like those woodier herbs, you know, rosemary and things like that, some of the sages. It doesn't like to be wet, so it would prefer, it can handle dry much better that can handle being wet. If it has wet feet, especially over the winter, it's not going to like that. The one other thing is it colors up so well as it gets into fall. So, you know, you kind of have the blooming in August and September, and then as we get, you know, colder and some frost, the foliage takes on this really great burgundy hue to it. So you kind of have the old flower heads and the burgundy foliage. And like Nikki said, it's great for multi-season interest, where it's adding, you know, color and texture to the garden in fall and as we get into winter. So as I mentioned, it's planted in the Pete Outhoff garden in front of the office, and then also the Modern Midwest garden in the back of the office. So that is Originatum Herrenhausen.
Shannon, 2 quick questions on this one. Have we seen it become invasive, or is it clumping form, and does it self-sow?
This one is clumping form. I have not seen it here, any issues with self-sowing or spreading or anything like that. So it seems to stay pretty contained. If anything, the first year it seems like it's, you know, kind of a little funky with the basal foliage, and then it kind of shoots out, but then it forms a better mound after that. So no, we have not seen any issues with seeding or anything like that here.
Awesome, thank you. All right, well, so we'll jump to the next one, which is Schizacharium Twilight Zone. So if you've seen me talk before, you know I love purple. I love this plant because it's purple, really beautiful purple foliage. So The photo you're seeing there is the plant in summer. So a lot of these Schizachyriums, we see the foliage color kind of set in as the temperatures cool. With some of this new breeding, it's really amazing. We're seeing this, foliage color change earlier in the season. So we get to enjoy it for a longer period of time. So this one during the summer has that really beautiful kind of purple, silvery iridescent color. And then as the cooler temps set in, this guy turns into a like very vibrant kind of pastel purple color. So I remember when we were first carrying it, I was driving a customer through the nursery and we basically like had to kind of like slam on the brakes when we passed a house of this grass because they were just purple. Like the customer was like, what is this? And it really, I think, just kind of stopped us in our tracks. So very beautiful plants. What I've noticed here in the trial gardens is it does tend to be a little bit more slow growing than other little blue stems that we have. I would though just kind of caution, do not over fertilize it. Any native plants, because they're used to so much competition. Now I know this is a native art, but any native plants, they like a lot of competition. So when you over fertilize, they grow too fast and then they end up flopping. So with this one in particular, just kind of know it might grow a little bit slower depending on the situation you have it planted in, but do not over fertilize because you don't want to see it kind of open and flop over. So like I said too, we have on here that it's native to North America. Of course, this one is a native R, so it was bred from Schizachyrium scoparium, which is a native plant to Illinois. So if you haven't tried this one, definitely would check it out. We do have it again planted in our perennial garden, and this one is Schizachyrium Twilight Zone.
All right, so the next plant we have is Solidago rugosa fireworks. And this one is, there are lots of native Solidago or goldenrod is the common name. And so this one just has a really great habit to it. Again, the first time I really noticed this plant was in a planting that Austin did, which is not even really a labeled garden we have here. But when you're driving into the nursery, there's that little median as you go into the UPIC parking lot, and it was planted in there. We have it with some juniper Nordic blue and some Calamantha nepeta, but everything else in there is kind of lower growing. And so these were big and upright and just like, their name says fireworks and they do kind of shoot out everywhere. And it was just such a great use of the plant and contrast to the other plants around it. I was like, so I have to admit, I was not a huge Solidago fan. When I moved into my current house, we had the canadensis, the super, super tall that kind of runs everywhere. And I spent a lot of time taking that out. So I was very anti-Solidago. So this one has definitely changed my mind on that. And so this one is going to get about 2 to 3 feet tall, a little bit wider. So it can be planted in a nice mass as well. If you just kind of want like a nice, blanket of yellow in a sense. Like I said, some of the other Solidago kind of get run and get a little bit crazy and tend to take over. And this one does not do that. It forms a clump, but it's nothing that's going to be unmanageable. So bloom time is similar to the others where it's going to be in August and September. And then like others, it's a great pollinator plant. So great for bees and butterflies and, wasps and things like that. So like I said, you can find it in kind of that unlabeled garden right at the front of the property, but then it also is in the perennial and ornamental grass display garden and in the modern Midwest matrix garden. So that's Solidago fireworks.
All right, so if you've watched any of my garden talks, you guys know that I am like wild about Sprobolus Aeroides. And another one we don't sell a lot of, and I just don't know why. So obviously Sprobolus heterolepis is a powerhouse in the garden, but I think Sprobolus Aeroides is just as much of an amazing plant. I honestly love it more than heterolepis at this point. I know heterolepis is native, but Aeroides, I think, adds a different kind of element in the garden. It is native to the United States, so kind of the Dakotas and Nebraska west. That's where you'll find this guy in the wild. So it does prefer a little bit of a drier kind of climate than maybe, you know, what we have here, but we've had this planted in our gardens for a number of years now. We kind of interplanted it in the Pete Udoff garden, and then we have it in the modern Midwest Matrix garden. So we've been watching it for years, and it performs amazingly in our climate. What's awesome about this plant is it flowers about 2 months earlier than Sprobolus heterolepis, and the flowers are more upright and they form this beautiful kind of, I don't know, iridescent kind of, I don't know, plume over the foliage. So I like the flowers a little bit better because they are so upright and float above the foliage, whereas Sprobolus heterolepis, it's all kind of a little bit more kind of weeping habit or arching habit. And I love that it flowers earlier. So in June, we have a grass display, which is awesome. What I would recommend and what I've told people is it's kind of cool to interplant the two. So you get a little bit of that early season flowering, and then you can kind of, you know, ease into the Sprobolus heterolepis flowering. But this plant is absolutely amazing. So again, very tolerant of dry soils and salt. So if you have maybe a median planting where, you know, in between roads where it's hot and dry, might get some salt spray, this guy's probably a good option for you. And it can actually take a little bit of part shade. So kind of in researching this guy a little bit further, because I love it so much, can take a bit of part shade as well. This one clumps, so it's not going to spread around. It'll stay in its nice clump, just like Sprobolus heterolepis. Yeah, I just can't say enough good things about this plant. So this is Sprobolus Aeroides, and come by in June and take a look at it. And maybe I'll highlight it again in the garden walks because I just can't stop talking about it.
Right. Yes, I knew Nikki would be excited to talk about that plant. So it's her favorite. Okay, so I think last up for the perennials, we have Vernonia Lettermanii iron butterfly. So you might be familiar with the native Vernonia. So this one is going to be a little bit shorter than that, dwarf habit at 2 to 3 feet tall and wide. But this plant makes it, I think both this plant and the goldenrod, we need to get a more, you know, full on or a full size picture of it. I realized when I was working on these two, because what makes this so impressive, it's just like a nice, neat mound. And then late in the season, you know, late August, September, October, it just gets covered with the purple flowers. And it's like so striking. And it's, you know, has the pollinators flocking to it. Again, the bees, parasitic wasps, things like that. And so it's just so impactful again at a time of year when, you know, we have asters and things like that, but just something a little bit different than the same, you know, fall plants that you're used to using. This one, besides the flowers, so when these finish up, when the purple flowers finish blooming, they turn brown, and it's like, you can see it's kind of a little pom-pom on top. So it looks like a little brown pom-pom. And it obviously that's great if you're leaving your gardens up for winter interest, you know, fall interest into winter to add some texture in there as well. So again, a really great plant. We have it in the perennial and ornamental display garden, and we also have a section of it in the Pete Udoff New Wave garden. So that is Vernonia iron butterfly. Okay, and then I think, yes, we have the polls for perennial now. So let us know which of the perennials are your favorite.
And vote quick if you can. We'll try and do this one quickly so we can keep moving, because I know we only have 10 minutes left and we still have a few sections. So Carrington, if you just want to give it like 10 seconds more and then show us the results.
Sounds good. We have about 65% of people voted. So get your votes in, everybody.
And a great comment from somebody that Vernonia is a really important plant for late season pollinators. That is absolutely correct. So when you think pollinators, you want to make sure you guys have some of those things blooming in September, October.
All right, we have our results for the perennials.
Twilight Zone, yes. That purple color, you can't beat it. So lots of really good options, but yeah, Twilight Zone, I really I'm a fan of that one as well. All right, so we'll keep moving. So next up we have shrubs. Midwest Groundcovers carries over 300 varieties of shrubs. So we have a lot of things to choose from, and Shannon and I have a couple really great kind of new varieties for you guys. Not new, but things that we think are awesome that we think you should try. So we'll move on here. First, we want to talk about the Conifer and Evergreen Garden. So if you guys haven't stopped by to see this garden, this one's probably one of the most interesting ones from a design aspect that we have. So we have all of our evergreens that we grow currently planted in this garden, and then they're planted in a grass matrix. So obviously, these guys are younger plants. They're not to their full mature size yet. So to kind of showcase them, we, instead of using mulch, used kind of grasses as a live mulch, and also a different texture to give the garden kind of a really cool look. So this one was designed by Austin Eichscheid as well. And as these conifers kind of grow to their mature size, we cut back the grasses to give them space. But this garden has multi-season interest and really kind of cool way to showcase conifers. So if you haven't stopped by to see it, definitely make sure you make some time this year to do so. Great way to see kind of different conifers, what their form is, and maybe how you could plant them. So we'll jump right into the first one, which is Chamaecyparis soft serve, which is from Proven Winners. And we have really loved this plant. And again, not a lot of people are using it. So it's definitely one of the kind of cleanest green, kind of very nice color green Chamaecyparis that we have. Very nice dense foliage and very soft looking. So the reason why it's called soft serve was it was supposed to kind of look like when you got an ice cream cone, that kind of soft serve look, but really kind of beautiful plant, nice soft texture. This plant is pretty slow growing, so just be aware of that. If you do plant it, it is a sport of boulevard, but we, Proven Winners, bred out a lot of the issues that you see with boulevard, like the pest and disease issues. So a much more improved variety. And you guys don't really need to do a lot of pruning on this one because, again, it's slow growing. It kind of keeps that nice tight shape. That's what it was bred for. So we definitely have some in the Conifer and Evergreen Display Garden. So make sure you guys stop by and check it out because it is a very nice conifer to use. So that is Chamaecyparis soft serve.
All right, so next up we have Canamelys Double Take Scarlet. So common name for this is quince, which you're probably familiar with some older varieties like Texas Scarlet. So this was introduced by Proven Winners quite a few years ago now, but this is a great improvement over the old varieties because it doesn't have the thorns or the fruit. So, you know, you're not having the thorns that a lot of people don't want in their yards, and also not the fruit and the mess that goes with it. So otherwise, it's similar in size to kind of some of the older ones at 3 to 4 feet tall and 4 to 6 feet wide. But it has those great double, almost like camellia-like flowers in early spring. So, you know, I think when we think of spring, we think of forsythia and red buds and stuff like that. And quince is one that I honestly kind of forget too, but it's that great red color to add a contrast to some of those. It's deer resistant. It does attract pollinators. So it's just a great plant. This is one that kind of like a lilac, you want to prune it, excuse me, after blooming, or else you're gonna, if you prune it later in the season, then you're gonna cut off some of the flowers. So we do not have this one planted anywhere on the property yet, but we are working, hopefully this year, by the end of the year, we will have completed our shrub display garden. That is gonna be kind of up by the front area where UPIC is. So we've kind of had that in the works for the last couple of years and are hoping to finally get that done this year. And if we do, then this is something that you can come check out there next spring. So Canamelys Double Take Scarlet. Sorry, I have the next one too. So our next plant is Juniper Nordic Blue. And so this plant is part of our Nordic program. And if you're not familiar with that, it was created kind of to honor the Danish traditions or the Scandinavian traditions that were from Peter Orum's heritage. So those are kind of strength, vigor, durability. So the plants in the Nordic program are meant to be tough, practical, durable, just like strong, maybe not super fancy plants, but like good performing plants. So this, the Juniper Nordic Blue, we have it planted in the modern Midwest matrix garden. And that the stand that is there has been there, I think, since the office was completed back in the early 90s. So, you know, those plants have been there over 20 years. And, you know, sometimes when juniper get old, they die out, they don't look great, they get spindly. These plants still look fantastic. This is another one where I think sometimes we sit in meetings and we're like, this plant is so great. How do we like convey to people how great this plant is? You know, of all the junipers, it's definitely the staff favorite. So it's a juniper. It gets kind of big, but not so big, you know, so 3 to 4 feet tall, a little bit wider than that. So you do want to make sure that you have it properly sited and allow it to kind of get to that size, because you can see in the picture, one of the best attributes about it is those blue berries and the contrast against the foliage. And if you're having to constantly prune it back, you're going to lose some of those berries. So it's just got a really nice habit. Again, a little bit wider than it is tall. Deer resistant. You know, we have had some issues this winter with deer eating a lot of the taxus on the property, but the junipers have been untouched. So I definitely recommend trying this one out, Juniper Nordic Blue. And you can also, as Nikki explained, find it in our Conifer and Evergreen garden.
Okay, next plant that we have is a rose for you guys, Rosa Easy Elegance My Girl. The Easy Elegance Rose program is a really great one. It's bred out of Bailey Nursery, and these roses are bred in Minnesota. So what's nice about that is they have really nice kind of heat tolerance, heat and humidity tolerance for the summer, and cold tolerance of the winter. So this one in particular has been one of the best performers in our trial gardens. So we do have a rose display garden, and this one, I think we all feel like the form is really nice, stays compact, super floriferous. It's a rebloomer and excellent cold hardiness. So actually, I know this one says zone 5 to 9. I believe it's 4 to 9. So there's a little bit of a typo there. Sorry about that. Like other roses, likes full sun, but this one's great because it has a very heavy petal count and it's fragrant and it stays really clean. So we don't see a lot of black spot on this one or defoliation. It's also an own root rose, which means it's not grafted on another one. So you don't see reversion. It stays true to itself. So this is Rosa My Girl, been a really great performer in our trial gardens. And if you're interested to see it yourself, check it out in our rose display garden.
All right, so next we have a Spirea Double Play Blue Kazoo. This is also part of the Proven Winners program. And part of the Double Play series, we have several Spirea in that series. But what makes this one really stand out, you can see, is that bluish colored foliage. So you know, it's got that bluish tint to it. When it leaves out, it also has some limes and some reddish, and at the end of the season, it kind of gets into the red and purple. So just the foliage has a really great color progression to it. Prefers full sun. It has, you know, white flowers similar to the regular Spirea flowers. So this is a fast growing plant and is going to make a nice mound at 2 to 3 feet tall and wide. So again, just a good performer. Can take some drought and you know, the deer don't like it, stuff like that. So if you're looking for a low maintenance plant with some color, this is a great plant to check out. So we do have a Spirea comparison display garden, which is kind of right next to the parking spaces at the main office. So you can find this plant there. So Spirea Double Play Blue Kazoo.
All right, so I know we're running in the end of our time here. We have 3 more plants for you. So again, if you can stick with us, please do. We're almost to the end. So I'm going to talk about Viburnum, All That Glitters and All That Glows. So we carry these 2 plants completely separately, but we need to present them together. It's very important. I think there's been some confusion on, you know, what is all that glitters? What's all that glows? Do we need both of them? Why are we selling both of them? So the plants do nearly look identical, but they're needed for cross-pollination to get them to set berries in the fall. So if you want that blue berry set on the dentatum, kind of like a blue muffin, you do need to plant both so they can get that cross-pollination action. So both get a really nice white flower in the spring, summer months. And then again, if you have both planted, they'll have a really nice blueberry set in the fall. They're called All That Glitters and All That Glows because one of their big things they bred for was super glossy foliage. So they have very thick, glossy foliage, a little bit more compact than a regular dentatum, you know, about 4 to 6 feet, but we're seeing this more on the shorter side. Again, really tight, compact form you can see in that photo. We have seen some deer resistance on this one too, so that's also a great attribute for us around here. And just really nice underutilized plants. Blue muffin's super popular, but I think All That Glitters and All That Glows are just as good, maybe if not better as far as the foliage look goes. So if you're looking to try a new viburnum, I would definitely check this one out, but make sure you order both kinds so you get that berry set.
Okay, we have a quick poll for the shrubs we just went through. So we're going to try to do this one even quicker than last time so we can be efficient.
We do have a question on the viburnums, if they're resistant to the viburnum leaf beetle. So we haven't seen any of this at our nursery yet. We know that they've been seeing it at the Morton Arboretum and some of the landscapes around the Chicagoland area. This is a newer issue, and I think everybody's trying to work through it and figure out you know, what the problem is and what viburnums they're attacking and things like that. We have not had the issue yet in our nursery. So I can't advise yet whether this one is resistant or not because people aren't breeding for that yet. Again, it's a newer issue to our area. So that's all we really know for now.
All right, the results are in.
All right, blue kazoo. Interesting.
Blue kazoo, super nice one.
Yep. All right, so then we'll get into our last category, which is natives. And just a quick talk about our native gardens. So those are located out at the Midwest Natural Garden site. Just a quick jog down 64 here. So our most recent garden was the native gardens, and many of you probably caught Austin and Jen's did a talk on that a few weeks ago. So I won't go into it too much, but it was basically, our intent was to showcase how people can use natives in a designed landscape. So we think of natives a lot of times as wild, but this is using native combinations for different scales between residential, kind of a larger residential and commercial site. So again, you're welcome to visit those gardens during our working hours, so you can check those out. So as for our, oh, sorry, Nikki, take it away.
No problem. So Iris cristata, which is dwarf crested iris, is a low-growing guide that gets these really beautiful purple iris flowers here in April. So it's getting almost ready for its big show here. This one also too has great fall color. It had really vibrant yellow fall color this past fall. It kind of stopped me in my tracks too in the fall. So obviously in the spring, great flowering plants, but in the fall too has some great attributes. This one does like to naturalize, and it's pretty fast growing, grows by rhizomes. So will kind of form a nice colony for you. But I would not say it's overly aggressive at all, especially with kind of plants planted around it. We haven't had an issue with that in our gardens. Does like some part shade, like other irises, can take a little bit more moisture, but really cute little plants, good for a little bit of spring color. So this one is native to the greater Midwest, and you can find it in our perennial garden, as well as our modern Midwest matrix garden, which is behind me in the photo here. So this one's Iris cristata.
All right, and so our last plant is Ceanothus americanus, or New Jersey tea. So this is a part of our Natural Garden Natives program. So it is a local ecotype to within 90 miles of St. Charles. And so you can see this plant forms a nice, again, rounded mound at 3 to 4 feet tall and wide, and has those nice white panicles in the, midsummer, June to July. So as with many of the natives, great pollinator plant, great for wildlife. And this is another plant that holds up to drought really well. So it's a good for tough areas. It's got a deep taproot, which is what helps to make it do well in drought. I will warn you that makes it a little difficult to transplant then though. So kind of once you get these in place, you wanna leave them be, but a great kind of utilitarian plant. So we actually have this in our boxwood alternative garden, which is meant to show plants that, if the boxwood blight ever became a bigger issue in our area, things that could serve the same kind of hedging purposes as boxwood. So this is a plant that we think could sub in nicely, and the fact that it's native is a bonus. So you can find that one on the property here in St. Charles in the boxwood alternative garden. So
And, yeah, a couple quick questions. Do they have problems getting established, and are they deer resistant?
I do believe that they're deer resistant, although I'm not 100%. And it might take a little bit. They're not a plant that's definitely going to pop out a lot of new growth, right after planting it. So yeah, it might take a little longer than some plants to get established, but we haven't seen any issues with it, like not surviving or anything like that.
So we'll do one final poll. You only have 2 natives to choose from, so let us know which one you're most excited about, and we'll do this really quickly. While we're doing that final poll, we did have a question on where you can find our education videos. If you do go to YouTube, you can search Midwest Groundcovers. We have a page. All of our education videos are there. Or if you're on our website, the upper left-hand side, there's a button that says education videos. Click on that and you'll see our library of things that we've recorded. So check that out.
All right, looks like the results are in. Pretty close race this time.
Ooh, yes. Kind of depends on if you like perennials or shrubs.
Right, I think so.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us. As a reminder, please follow us on Instagram. We'll be doing garden walks every other week here in the spring and summer and fall. So Shannon and I will show you what's going on. And like I already explained, the YouTube videos are available on the YouTube channel and through our website. So we're always here to kind of give you guys advice, help you out. So we hope you have a wonderful spring. We do have 2 more education sessions yet this month, so join us for those if you can. But otherwise, please take the survey as you guys exit. And if you're looking for CEUs, be on the lookout for that soon. So thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your Friday.
Thank you.